Yang?
Oh, do I have a cabinet position for Andrew Yang? Well, of course, I am not going to talk about vice presidents or cabinet positions until we get there, but I will make this promise. Andrew Yang has been a great inspiration to me. He introduced me to the concept of universal basic income, something that I didn't think much of until I realized it could be the great answer to the question, sir, that you just asked. Because artificial intelligence is going to disrupt this economy and going to eliminate millions of jobs. The good news is those who work with their hands, plumbers and carpenters, pipe fitters, steel workers, they're not at risk. Middle management clerical people, writers, legal aides, at great risk. And I think it's time that we really start testing universal basic income or guaranteed basic income, because if we don't, we are not going to be prepared. And that's why I'm going to sponsor the bill in Congress right now to pilot program universal basic income, because it is that important. Andrew Yang and I have talked about this. I will have the most extraordinary cabinet in history, I promise you that.
So some interesting words from Dean Phillips. Maybe Andrew Yang will be back. And he certainly did not deny that he could potentially put Andrew Yang in his cabinet. So hello, I'm Dodge Landesman, as you probably already know. Thank you guys for following me, and just wanted to give you a report from the Dean Phillips Keene Town Hall event. It was at a local brewery. And I figured it would be interesting to kind of try to cover every candidate, not just the big names and the most famous ones last time I went to a Trump rally. But this is a real primary race, and President Joseph Biden is trying not to make it a primary race. The Democratic Party has canceled their primary in both North Carolina and Florida so far. But if you actually go on the ground and talk to voters and get their sentiment, it looks like there actually is a real Democratic primary race, a three-way race. Some people consider Cenk Uygur another candidate who I don't think is as serious, but it is at least a three-way race within the state of New Hampshire. So I wanted to check out the campaign and the town hall of Congressman Dean Phillips, who kind of displayed himself initially as sort of this moderate Biden-like candidate, but he certainly changed his tone, I think, throughout the duration of the campaign. His opening salvo when he ran is he essentially said Biden was close to perfect on the issues, but that he just couldn't win. Now, if you look at what he's saying after he's been talking to voters, he seems a lot more independent. And quite frankly, as someone who has been a Democrat, his break from Biden makes me like him more, and I think I'm not the only voter who would feel that way. So really interesting town hall event. There were about 150 people there at his town hall, so a pretty good number, and I wanted to bring that up and bring out the number of people because the mainstream media has been trying to paint the Dean Phillips campaign as this pathetic campaign where nobody has any interest. And they even brought up this one specific instance where he had a big bus in Manchester, New Hampshire set up just to give coffee, and not one person showed up. And then they build the headline saying 0 people show up to a Dean Phillips event. And he explained this, and he explained it wasn't actually an event. He just parked his bus outside for about 20 minutes, and there was a college group from the University of New Hampshire, a sports team who he wanted to greet because it's like 100 kids or something, or 100 young college students. And they actually went through the back entrances, which is why he didn't get any of them. But it just goes to show how biased and quite frankly fearful the mainstream media is. Because, of course, they want to keep Biden under wraps and free from any conversation and free from getting any questions from voters. And if people pay attention to Dean or Marianne Williamson, by comparison to this almost zombie-like creature currently in the White House, then that could be a very scary thing. And I will say, look, being on the ground, it looks like Phillips is gaining momentum. Not a good amount of momentum, and I don't think he'll actually win the state of New Hampshire. But let's actually discuss this primary process and why this primary is important. So as you probably know, the National Democratic Party, in claims of trying to diversify their early voting base, decided that their first primary would be the Biden-friendly state of South Carolina. Thereby, all the delegates in New Hampshire would not be considered, would not be allowed. But here's the very strange quandary about this. It is written in state New Hampshire law that New Hampshire comes first in the primary. That was ever since, I believe, 1948, when they had some of the early primaries back then. So that is within New Hampshire state law. Now, the National Democratic Party will try to claim that they get to set the rules because this is not an official election. A primary election is not an official election. It is actually a Robert Rules of Order type thing that the National Party gets to decide the rules of, that they're not actually legal elections. And you can make the argument, for example, Mexico has presidential elections, but they don't have a primary election. Canada has elections with prime ministers, obviously, and with members of parliament, but only the Conservative Party people get to vote for their Conservative nominee however many X years out. And we will be going up to Canada in 2025, by the way, to cover that. And Mexico as well this July to cover that election. So I have a love of all three countries. But the Democratic Party says that they have ultimate power and jurisdiction over this because this is not a real election. This is all just smoke and mirrors created by the grace, in their opinion, of the National Democratic Party. But here's where a court case could get some leeway. First, New Hampshire voters will be disenfranchised. What happens now if there's no primary or the results of the primary are not considered valid for delegates, then what that simply means is that delegates on a whim will choose who they want to support at the national conventions. That means that their support will not be reflective of any single primary result, making New Hampshire the one state out of more than 50, out of all the territories too, out of 50 states and 3 territories that vote in the primary, that would not get to select their nominee. Every other state and territory would. So I think that would be ripe for a challenge. And is it illegal to overstep state law? See, it was just the internal machinations of the Democratic Party. But once New Hampshire added that into their state constitution and state law, well, now you're actually talking about issues of the law and a legal right to vote. So it's very possible that these delegates are counted. Now, the way that Biden is still trying to make an effort here, sort of, where his stalking horses are trying to do a write-in Biden campaign. So Biden will not be respectful enough to actually come to New Hampshire or talk to people or answer any of their questions. But there are a lot of signs saying write-in Biden. The write-in stuff is very dangerous, and I'm not going to digress too much. But there are 2 elections. Biden is thinking like this old, antiquated man, not even born in 1942, but born in like 1910. Back in the day, when the primaries were first established, 1912 is when they were established, 1948 is when they really started happening. Initially, what would happen is a president would say they were above the whole primary process. And what they would either do is they would have a favorite son candidate, so someone would run for president but not really run for president and say, I'm running for president, but I'm running for president to give my delegates and my state delegates, if I win X amount of votes, to the incumbent president or whatever. So you have the stalking horse, and then the other one you have is you hope and pray that you're so powerful and so mighty and have so much loyalty that all your little minions just write you in. And Biden is hoping people write him in. Well, that might have worked in 1948. Harry Truman did win the New Hampshire primary when he had no opposition. In 1948, good for him. But it hasn't worked since 1948 because guess what? Harry Truman then tried in 1952. He thought all his minions would write his name in, and they did. But more people, because he actually showed up in campaigns, supported the anti-mafia crusader and Tennessee Senator Estes Kefauver. And Kefauver was this great anti-establishment, anti-corruption senator that the party machinery just hated him. The more things change, the more they stay the same. He's one of the great unsung heroes. Kefauver won New Hampshire and then forced Truman out of the race. Now, the election was later stolen from him because the mob bosses wouldn't support Kefauver. They nominated Adlai Stevenson. That was the last time somebody got nominated in an open convention without a primary. But that was a failure. And then, of course, the famous situation in 1968. Eugene McCarthy, Minnesota senator, runs against Lyndon Johnson. X amount of people write in Lyndon Johnson's name. But McCarthy only loses to Johnson by 7%. Not bad. So my prediction for the New Hampshire primary, New Hampshire voters are pissed off. Take a look at some voters I spoke with about this situation. And they feel slighted and they feel jettisoned. And even if they're a loyal Democrat, they're happy that they have Biden. I mean, they're happy that they have Dean Phillips or Marianne running because they're not going to forgive Biden for essentially saying that their vote should not be enfranchised.
Biden is too old, and Trump ought to be in jail. I've got to look at the alternatives.
Succinctly put, I like it. Do you think Dean won your vote or keeping an open mind?
I've seen the good side of him. Where's the bad side?
It's a good way to put it.
I want to see where the other side lies. And what we're all human, and I want to see that side and see how he responded. And I'd also like to see actual examples of how he worked with both sides of the aisle on important issues and won. I'd love to see it.
Yeah, get specific. And are you siding between him and Marianne, or you're looking at potentially voting the GOP as well, or are you siding between him and Marianne or Biden, writing in Biden, or is Biden out of the question?
That's complicated. I'm almost thinking of voting on the GOP, I'm independent.
Right, so you can do either, right?
I can vote in the GOP against Trump.
So obviously, yeah, so that's interesting.
I mean, that's one way of looking at it.
Right. So you're a Democrat, I assume. You got to, in general.
I am now. I was just about ready to go back to independent after the way the Democratic Party is treating New Hampshire, but I'm going to hang in now. After I saw Dean Phillips' speech, I am inspired.
So originally you were for Andrew Yang. So what do you think there might be some commonalities between the two?
Well, okay, the last election, we went to every candidate, and Andrew Yang, his last night on the campaign trail before he withdrew, was here in Keene, and he was so amazing. I mean, he was probably slap happy. He'd been up all day. It was about midnight. But he was right on everything. We read his book. He's right on AI and a lot of the other technologies. So yeah, we really like Andrew, and now we're liking what we see with Dean Phillips.
So you think Dean has the charisma and ideas and energy to be a good candidate? To get your vote? Sweet.
I mean, it was really exciting to be here. I mean, we didn't come expecting a whole lot, but you look at 3 weeks ago, most people in New Hampshire never heard of him. And to come in here today, and there's a full house, people were excited, and when he spoke from being a sincere, real person. And I haven't had that personally since I worked with Ross Perot's campaign back in '96. And a lot of what he said about political corruption, I've been feeling my whole life. I got sucked into the Reform Party for 5 years after Ross Perot because I believed in that. So it's nice to see somebody acknowledging we still have those problems. And maybe somebody could try to fix it.
Well put. And so I assume you'll vote in the Democratic primary.
Yeah, I am a registered Democrat.
Cool. So then the question is between Phillips, Marianne, or writing in Biden, or between Phillips and Marianne?
It's between Phillips and Marianne. And Marianne is a very intelligent person.
She is.
And I really like her. But, I mean, I'm torn right now. For one, the business experience that Dean Phillips has with the political experience. Marianne is an incredibly intelligent woman. I'm torn, but I also want to look at who's really going to get after it. And really, I mean, he's right on so many things. So we'll see.
So really interesting if you, and apologies for the second one with a dark picture of learning process, obviously. But it's interesting. You see what's in the heads of these voters, and they are loyal Democrats, but they're not going to just write in Biden's name. And obviously it's a biased pool because those are people who are actually showing up at the event, but 150 people did actually show up to Dean Phillips' event. So it's not really that horrific of a sample size if you think about it. Of course, the concern for Phillips is this. As that one gentleman said, he might go for Haley because he hates Trump so much. So Haley is in this awkward position. That's why she kind of tacked to the left of the debates, if you could recall. She's in this awkward position of trying to pull back a lot of the Dean Phillips and Marianne Williamson voters and say, hey, even though you don't like me on the policies and pretty much everything else, if you think I'm good against Trump and you want to stop Trump, then vote for me. So she'll be battling it out, ironically, with the same voters that would vote for Dean Phillips, as you can tell by these interviews. I think ultimately Phillips will do better than expected. I think Marianne will too. I'm going to reserve judgment how well Marianne does until I actually show up to her event, which should be tomorrow or the next day. Sorry, guys, kind of lied to you about the poll, by the way. I did a poll, who should I see first? I ended up seeing Dean first because Marianne was way up north, about a 2-hour drive. She's coming back down south tomorrow. So I'm going to see her. I'm going to try to see Vivek Ramaswamy on Tuesday, and we'll also have some Iowa coverage. So there's a lot on the agenda. But I think Dean Phillips, in my opinion, Biden will get 40%, and Dean will get 25 to 30. Dean's right now polling at 25%. So I think Dean will get 25 to 30. Marianne might get 20 as well, 15 to 20. But I think Biden, it's 60 points between Marianne and Dean, and Biden gets 40. And if Biden gets only 40% of the vote, one of these candidates, either Dean or Marianne, especially if one coalesces behind the other, they can make this a real race. And I only say a real race, meaning they'll get some momentum in Nevada, they'll put up a respectable enough number in South Carolina, and then they'll all get crushed on Super Tuesday. I think at the end of the day, the narrative of this election is candidates will do better than you expect, but the two expected nominees will pull through, but it will take longer than everybody's saying. It's not as inevitable as everybody is saying. I think everybody will live and die on Super Tuesday, but they'll make it there. I think even Dean Phillips and quite possibly Marianne Williamson will make it until Super Tuesday. And making it, now you could be a ridiculous candidate, have no shot, but still getting some press. Making it, again, would be getting 30% in New Hampshire. I think the identical thing on the GOP. I think Haley is going to win New Hampshire. And just talking to people, I'm going to go to a Haley event myself, obviously, and a Vivek event, and I went to a Trump event, which is only 75% filled, so he's losing his luster a little bit. But I think ultimately the same thing will happen. Haley will hold on in South Carolina. She'll win New Hampshire, hold on in South Carolina, maybe barely beat Trump with the momentum, but then get totally crushed on Super Tuesday. That's my guess. But I'm praying, because I love primaries, that at least lasts until Super Tuesday. If it does, then guess what? We're going to Texas and a lot of different, and Alabama and a lot of other Super Tuesday states. But also wanted to talk about some of the substance that Dean Phillips was all about. He particularly addressed artificial intelligence, which not a lot of candidates have a knowledge about, but it's probably going to be the biggest political topic 4 years from now in the next election. So I like that he has a very reasoned and educated position on this.
Thanks for coming. What, if anything, do you think we should do about AI?
Oh, so glad you asked. So my contention, by the way, on AI stands for artificial intelligence. It is not something that is coming maybe in a few years. It's actually around us right now. It has the potential to revolutionize the world, to be extraordinarily helpful in reducing costs, improving outcomes, particularly in healthcare and service delivery. And it has the potential, if it's used nefariously, to undermine every single one of us in the entire future of this world. But I'm afraid that Donald Trump and Joe Biden are not people who will A, understand this, and B, will not be around to see the most extraordinary effects, both negative and positive. These people will. And not only do I understand AI and the implications and how we can prepare for it, I actually sat at Kevin McCarthy's AI kitchen cabinet, one of 3 Democrats and 3 Republicans that before he was deposed was working with him on developing guardrails so that we can protect our country from AI. Now, Donald Trump and Joe Biden will not answer reporters' questions. They will not debate. They will not sit in front of you and do a town hall or a Q&A. So how do we even know if they know what it is? Is that not concerning? The most extraordinarily disruptive technology coming down the pipeline? That the 2 leading candidates for president of the United States may not even have the sensibility at this stage to understand the implications. I do. I know what Web3 is. I know what blockchain is. Okay? And I can tell you how it can help us and how it can hurt us. I'm not going to waste your time today because it would take about 6 hours to do so, but that's my point. The good news is this. AI should be the most extraordinary changing for good in this country. We should make sure that it is allowed to be innovative. It should be the most extraordinary enterprise in America. We need to work with our friends and our foes around the world to regulate it, and we have to start adopting it soon. Mark my words, I will be the first president of the United States of America that actually intentionally, explicitly embeds artificial intelligence to deliver better service for Americans, customer service.
And it was interesting to see Phillips get tough on China. He almost echoed this Trump sentiment, although in a much nicer, likable, kinder, gentler way, but also saying that we need to get tough on China in whether it be tech or whether it be trade or whatever it might be. So he is slowly, Dean Phillips, with this town hall, I think he's slowly veering towards a populist bent.
What are some ways that you would sort of manage the U.S. relationship with China, specifically in terms of like how many goods we get from them?
A great question. So our relationship with China will, I think, have a lot to do with where our entire country goes, because unfortunately I'm of the opinion that we have mismanaged this relationship for 30 years. We started by literally handing our economy to them 3 decades ago. That's why we have Trumpism. We have so many heartbroken, angry Americans who were just wanting to work hard at the local factory, especially in the middle of America. And all of those factories got shut down and either went, through NAFTA, went south or north, or went to China. And it was so predictable. We can be a global economy, have a global policy, but protect Americans. So it started 30 years ago. And then they started stealing our IP, our intellectual property, our secrets. And we didn't do anything. And they continue to send fentanyl and drugs through Mexico, and by the way, lots of other places that come right into our country, and they don't do much to stop it. They think it's okay to have TikTok available to all of us. Well, all of us. But it's not okay to have Facebook and Instagram available in China. So I'm of a very simple philosophy. It's called reciprocity. You treat me nicely, I'm going to treat you nicely. You allow our apps to be used in your country, we allow your apps to be used in our country. Right? You trade fairly with us, we trade fairly with you, and if you don't steal our stuff, we will not steal yours. So when we play by different rules, which are rules that I believe in, integrity, the rule of law, international order, we should have expectations of our partners. China's at great risk right now. Their economy is teetering on the edge. Taiwan just elected a very anti-China leader. They're going to have their hands full. So my proposition is this: I always lead believing that peace is possible.
Which I think is smart if you're running against Biden. I think he shed the overcautiousness early on. He was being supported by Steve Schmidt, who was part of the Lincoln Project and was a key GOP activist, anti-Trump activist. Schmidt apparently stopped, or Schmidt's super PAC stopped giving Dean Phillips money because he was going after Biden too much. But that just makes me like the guy even more, and I think it's a much smarter approach. Stop being scared. That's why I keep saying Nikki Haley. Just start attacking, man. Stop being scared. And then finally, as you can see with the full town hall, if you want to check that out, Phillips was very adamant, even more so than he was before, that Biden will definitely lose. So I like the guy. I like that he's not mincing words. I thought he was charming. He was capable. He answered every question. I always notice the little stupid things, even though they're not important. They kind of show what your character is like. So I was watching how Dean Phillips interacted with other voters. Did he let them linger and have conversations? Was he cutting them off? And I respected the guy because he let them linger. He had this dialogue, and he just kind of stuck around. Now, of course, that's easier if you're not this sensational, hugely famous candidate and you have 100, but still 150 people did show up, and he was there for hour. I left maybe an hour after he finished, and he was still in the building talking with everybody, and which I like that. I think he has respect for the people who come to meet him, and as is relatable, and it is good on the stump. Just comes off as a likable, knowledgeable, down-to-earth guy. For some progressives, he might not be progressive enough, but a lot of this stuff, I think he's singing the right tune. So yeah, I think there'll be some other Phillips events in the future. Thank you guys for following. Hey, again, as I said before, try not to unsubscribe, man. Every time I post a video, I lose 10 subscribers. If you're one of the people that unsubscribe, just tell me why you hate me. It stinks when every time you post a video, your subscription count goes down. It makes me not want to post, because if I don't post, my subscriber count doesn't go down. If I do post, Maybe people just hate redheads and they see a redhead pop up and they are discriminatory. A comedian once said, making fun of me, that making fun of redheads and hating redheads is the last acceptable form of discrimination. So maybe that's what it is. Maybe you just hate redheads and that's okay. But yeah, dude, just don't unsubscribe. You don't even have to subscribe. Just leave it there. But it is very disheartening when I post a new video and it's just this drop. 10 subscribers isn't a huge drop, but I'm trying to stay above 5,000 and I keep going up and down, up and down. It would really be nice to stay above 5,000. So this is a struggle, and yeah, my heart it's not the end of the world, and I'm having a fun time, and I'm getting a lot of positive feedback, but my heart sinks when I lose 10 subscribers on a single video. That was after the video I posted about the Trump rally. So even if you want to unsubscribe, just tell me what I'm doing wrong. Just to educate myself. And you can be mean, you can be as hurtful as you want, but I'd like to be educated on this. That being said, I think losing random subscribers is something normal that happens to everybody. So I'm not really losing sleep over it, just kind of having fun with it. But yeah, so a lot of stuff in the future. Tomorrow, Marianne Williamson, I believe, and we're going to try to catch Vivek. And way up north on Wednesday will be Nikki Haley. Might have something for you tomorrow, depending on how long it takes to edit and everything, how much exercise the dog gets. But tomorrow, I think, obviously, the focus will be the results of the Iowa caucus. And just to wrap up as to my thoughts on the Iowa caucus, looks like Haley is comfortably sailing into second place. Trump, for the first time in a poll, is under 50%. He's at 48%. So that's interesting. He was at under 50% for some time, or hovering around it in New Hampshire. This is the first time in Iowa that Trump is under 50%. So that certainly might ring some alarm bells to people who are hardcore Trump loyalists. Under 50%, that's scary, because if it's just one person, everybody else coalesces behind that one person, then they can beat you. Now, of course, that's not the case. Some DeSantis voters will go to Trump. All of Vivek's voters probably will go to Trump, quite frankly. But still, it's his lowest number in Iowa, and you wouldn't notice it because it's not like DeSantis did better. It's just Haley is now in 6 points ahead of DeSantis. I think Trump is at 48%, and Haley was about 20%, and DeSantis was about 14%. And Vivek, I think, was about 8%, something like that. But if Haley gets second place, then she surely wins New Hampshire. And then it's a real race. And then it's all in South Carolina. Now, some of the conventional thinking is that they really actually don't like her in South Carolina. And she's not liberal, but someone's liberalness is totally relative in comparison to the other person. So people try to paint Haley as liberal, might not play well in South Carolina, but it's her home state. And she might get the momentum that she needs. So becoming an exciting race. Pay attention to the Democratic primary, even though it's a bit of a dud. There was a debate, a News Nation debate. I might do some longer analysis on that. Marianne and Dean, I think, both did very well and came off as very human, and also talked about their contrasts on Israel with Biden. The last thing I'll say is, it's funny, in the Trump New Hampshire rally, I saw all these Israel protesters, and Biden is losing support from Muslim Americans because of his position in Israel, when Trump's position in Israel is identical to Biden. So it is very funny that Biden is losing support. What, you're going to vote the other guy who's just as extreme on this stuff? So I liked Marianne and Dean's position. Dean is a little more moderate. Marianne is ceasefire now. Dean says we have to get there. We have to have some conversations. I think I like that level-headed view more, but they're neither of them are reflexively pro-Israel, which I thought was interesting to find out in the debate. Cenk Uygur was there and was just kind of screaming the whole time. So I'm still going to try to go to his event. I don't even know if he's campaigning. I don't actually know if he's that serious of a candidate where he's actually going to come up to New Hampshire and physically meet voters. I would be surprised. So I think he's a joke. But check out the News Nation debate as well. Also, let me know if you want me to post the full town hall in the better video quality I had. I was filming with two cameras, my phone, so I filmed his entire town hall with my phone. With the live stream, which the quality isn't very good, and then I have my DSLR camera, and I filmed that as well. So you'll see the DSLR, the picture is much better, and the sound is much better as well. If you want to see his full thing, that's on the live stream. But let me know if you want me to post the full town hall anyway. I might, and I'm going to clip a bunch of stuff. But thank you guys, as always, for the encouragement. Thank you for following me. want to address alien drone services. You're right about the prediction, that the bigger prediction, which I totally missed, is Nikki Haley, Ron DeSantis ticket, and that the anti-Trump people are coalescing to create this Nikki Haley DeSantis ticket. I'd be surprised. I think that might be a little bit of a conspiracy theory, and I like some of Vivek's conspiracy theories. Honestly, some of the stuff he's correct about, but I don't think that's the case. And then some new supporters. I want to give a shout out to Carrie, I believe. Thank you again for your continued support. And I believe there's a gentleman named John B, who said I should film more of my trip, which I thought was a good idea. So I'm filming more of that, and you'll see a lot more of my dog, I think, floating around. Once New Hampshire is over and there's some lull time, I'm going to do kind of this opus about how I found my dog. I found him, I was down in Mexico about 3 years ago, and he was a street dog. There are millions of street dogs, stray dogs over there. He just started following me. Had cancer, had a big tumor on his nose. He had to get chemotherapy. He's been all over the continent with me because I've spent half of my adult life really on the road. He's been to, I believe, 18 states in Mexico, 20 in the U.S., and he's tied me with Canada. We have both been to 6 provinces in Canada. I've been to more states in Mexico and the U.S. than my dog has been. Got a head start, but we've both seen the same amount of Canada. So he has a very cool story, and it's been a real joy in my life. So I think I might post that in a little short. Got a lot of traction, which is fun. Actually got me subscribers after I lost all the other subscribers. So thank you guys. And again, just don't unsubscribe, please. Punch me, send me hateful messages, threaten my life. Just don't unsubscribe. How about that? If you stay subscribed, you can send me an email threatening to kill me. I will not go to the police. That is what I will ask for you to stay subscribed. Take care, guys. Bye-bye.